Hello, everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time tuning in, my name is Adrielle, and I am currently narrating a story of my life dating back from January 2016. In the previous episode, I talked about the month of May, and in this episode, I am going to talk about a discussion I had with Esther in the month of May. So, here it goes. So, it was sometime in May. I want to say probably towards the end of May. Most likely, it was definitely after her roommate's graduation celebration. Esther came over to my apartment. I forgot why, but I think she just wanted to see me. So she comes over and we're just having a discussion. And I think we're just talking about like how I'm dealing concerning my father's passing, like how I'm coping, especially with, the whole unemployment situation. So yeah, we're just talking. And then I don't know how the conversation went to this place, but I remember saying to her that even when I stayed with Ruth back in 2020, like that time was just so hard. Even it got crazy to the point where people were telling her that she should charge me rent and I should chip in. And she says to me, "Oh, she had the discussion with you." And I said, "Yes." And then she says, "Well, I'm glad she had that conversation with you because she had that conversation with me." Y'all, the way I fell back on the couch and the way I was so surprised, I was like, "What?" She was like, "Yeah, Ruth had that discussion with me." Then she says to me, which is Esther, she says, "Remember when I came over to the apartment and you had cramps?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that was Mother's Day." She was like, "Yeah. Um, when I was leaving, Ruth escorted me outside." And I was like, "Yeah, I remember that." And I remember y'all were out for like a long time. So she says, "Well, when she escorted me outside, she says to me, 'Esther, I need to have a conversation with you.'" And then she says, "Naomi and friend A are telling me I need to charge Adriel rent or she needs to chip in. I'm just want to get a second opinion." And then that was when Esther told her, "Hey, Ruth, Adriel doesn't have a job. She doesn't have anywhere to go. If you ask her to chip in, like, how's she going to chip in?" She also told Ruth, like, "Hey, Ruth, your parents are paying for your rent. So why don't you just pay that forward for her as well?" And then she was also advising Ruth, like, "Hey, don't let people get into your ear. If you know you don't want to charge Adriel rent or you don't want to get any money from her, don't do it." And then she was also just telling her, like, "Hey, don't let people just get to you. Like, don't, like, just advising her, don't let people get to her. Like, know who you are and stand by who you are." Esther also told Ruth that she shouldn't allow the devil to use her. So when she said that to you, Adriel, this is Esther talking to me. So when she said that to you, Adriel, she actually got that from me. Because I told Esther that um, Ruth told me that she didn't want the devil to use her. That's why she didn't ask me to chip in. So I'm just sitting there in complete shock, y'all. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, why was this a big deal? If Ruth wanted me to pay rent or wanted me to chip in, why couldn't she have just said so? Why is there so many outside conversations about me staying with Ruth? At this point, I was just weirded out by everything. So I'm like, oh my goodness, 2020, when I was staying with Ruth, it was really a weird situation. And I felt like it didn't have to be because whatever Ruth was feeling about me staying with her, she could have just had a discussion with me. So I'm like, why did it turn into this big trivial thing? So I'm asking Esther. I said, "Esther, how come Ruth didn't have a discussion with me?" She was like, "Well, Adriel, I don't know. So she started talking about friend A and Naomi. She was like, I don't know what friend A and Naomi were really trying to do and get to Ruth. I don't know what their motive was, but she was like, Adriel, don't be so concerned about friend A and Naomi because first of all, they don't know. They didn't know what you were going through. And a lot of times when people don't know what you're going through, they are not very empathetic. So they're very quick to say, oh no, she needs to chip in. She needs to do this. She needs to do that. So she was telling me, don't even focus on friend A and Naomi. And which is cool because to be honest, I didn't understand why friend A and Naomi added their own 2 cents into the situation, right? But my thing was with Ruth, like, Ruth, I'm your friend. Like, I just felt like Ruth never defended me. So at this time during the discussion, Esther is kind of like caping for Ruth, and she says, "Well, Adriel, how would you feel if you were in Ruth's situation?" I'm like, if I was in Ruth's situation, I would have the discussion. Like, like I don't understand. Like I don't understand. If I was in Ruth's situation, I would have the discussion. And plus, I did chip in. She told me not to. So she started caping for Ruth and saying that I wasn't giving Ruth any updates about what I had going on. And I told Esther that, hey, Esther, I was applying to jobs. I wasn't getting any jobs. And that's when Esther said, that was the reason why when I came over the second time. Now, remember, she came over a second time in May 2020. This was during the whole protest situation was going on and a lot of looting and whatever. And Esther asked me how the job search was going. She said that she purposely asked me that question that day because of the discussion that Ruth and Esther had the night of Mother's Day. So I'm like, and it's so funny, y'all. When Esther asked me that question that day, I knew something was off because Ruth was super quiet. So I was like, oh my goodness. So you guys were like having conversations behind my back? And then she was like, Adriel, it's not like that. Like, to be honest, Adriel, like, we care about you. We are your friends. Like, we want to see you win. Like, it bothers us that you don't have a job. It bothers us that things are not going well for you and you're not letting us in. You're not telling us anything. I'm like, hey, Esther, what is there for me to tell you guys? I'm applying to jobs. I wasn't getting any jobs. Like, I don't know what they wanted from me. But see, here's the thing. I'm like, if y'all really felt that way, how come there was never a sit down discussion? So that's how the conversation went to me staying with Esther. And I said, Esther, to be honest, when I stayed with you, you were not kind to me. That's when Esther was like, yeah, that time wasn't a good time. She talked about the personal situation she had going on, that it was really bothering her. And she said to me, this is what she said, that to be honest, Adriel, like, I honestly was forcing myself to be happy just to accommodate you, but I was really going through it with the personal situation. And I told her, I said, hey, but you told me you forgave the situation. Everything was all right. The morning of my birthday, that was when everything went left. And that was when she told me that the morning of my birthday, she got a text message that just rattled her. So the forgiveness she had before, it kind of just went away because that text message really messed her up and she just was not in a good place. She told me that she cried a lot. She was like, she cried a lot. She went through a lot and she just wasn't in a good space. Now, mind you, here's the thing. She was explaining to me why she was mean to me, but she didn't acknowledge that she was actually mean to me, right? So she just kept on explaining what happened to her. So she goes on to say, even Adriel, you told me when you got into the house that you're only staying here for a week. And I said to her, I said, yeah, that was the plan. She said, well, you didn't update me about your situation. And then I told her, I said, Esther, my plan was to only stay for a week. That was the plan. I already had the money. Hidden Valley was giving me the runaround. I couldn't control that. So she said, Well, it took for me to ask you about Hidden Valley for you to tell me you got approved. And I said, Esther, when you asked me, I had just gotten that email that morning. So it's not like I knew and I just was, hiding it from you. I just got the approval that morning. So she starts going on and on about how I wasn't giving her any updates, that you weren't telling me about what was going on, like you were staying in my place. Even my roommate, I told her that you were only staying for a week. After the week was up, she comes to me and says, "Hey, it's a week. What's going on with your friend? Is she staying longer?" And because you're not updating me, I can't give her any updates. So I was like, "Oh, your roommate actually approached you." She was like, "Adriel, yes." And this is what she says to me. I want y'all to mark this. This is what she says to me. She says, "Adriel, honestly, if I had the entire apartment to myself, oh, you can stay in my apartment. You can stay in that other room for as long as you want." And I said, "Esther, are you serious?" She's like, "Yeah. If I had the entire apartment to myself, I would let you stay in that spare room and you can stay however long you need to stay until you get a job, until you get on your feet. But I have a roommate, so I can't just do stuff. I have to let her know." So now I'm kind of feeling bad because I never wanted to be a case where her roommate is approaching her about my situation. I never wanted to make them feel uncomfortable. And which I was surprised because her roommate was barely there, y'all. So I'm surprised that her roommate actually was like on her about me staying there. So she was just going on about I wasn't giving her any updates, that when you stay in a person's apartment, when you stay in a person's place, you have to give them updates. It's not right because it's not fair to them because they are allowing you to stay in their place and you're not giving them any updates. And she said, I believe that's why Ruth was fed up because you were just staying there and you weren't telling her anything. The same thing you did with me. Like you were staying there, you weren't telling me anything. And I told her, I said, Esther, there was no updates. So what do you want me to tell you? And she was like, at least tell us that. Tell us that I called Hidden Valley, they didn't pick up. I'm gonna try again tomorrow. I called Hidden Valley tomorrow. I'm gonna have an appointment. At least let us know so that we know what's going on. So I started to feel bad about what I did. Because to be honest, y'all, I'm gonna be real with you. I personally did not update them because y'all, there was no updates. At the same time, y'all, I really was so focused on my thing. Like, I need to get to Hidden Valley. I need to do this. I need to do that. I wasn't even thinking about them. I'm thinking about me getting to Hidden Valley or getting the job. So I felt like, okay, maybe in me doing that, I was kind of selfish in not bringing them along, even though I felt like there was nothing to bring along. So I said, you know what? I apologize. She was like, oh, yeah. Like, Adriel, like, to be honest, Adriel, we care about you. It's not that, we're just whatever. We actually care about you. And then also something I forgot to mention too, y'all. Something I forgot to mention. Back in August 4th of 2020, when Esther approached me about the job search and why God wanted me to stay in Atlanta, and I didn't tell her the reason why. And then the next day, that was when she started having an attitude with me. On my birthday, August 5th, 2020, I honestly believed that the reason why Esther had an issue with me that morning was because she was offended that I didn't tell her the reason why God wanted me to stay in Atlanta. Then later on, I realized, okay, no, she had a foothold for the devil. So in this conversation, May 2021, when we're talking, that came up because the whole update, you got to update us, you got to update us. It came up and she was like, Adriel, when we had that discussion, which was August 4th, 2020, I was asking you about the job search. I was asking all these questions and you started crying. That's when she told me, I think was it the next day or 2 days later, she got a call from Ruth. And Ruth called her and asked her, hey, did you have the conversation with Adriel? That was when Esther told Ruth, hey, I'm not talking to Adriel because when I brought it up, the whole job thing, she started crying. So it's beyond me. I'm not asking her any more questions. I'm done. If you want to talk to her, but I'm done. I'm not asking her any questions because she's gonna start crying. When she said that, I was thinking in my head, why is there so many behind the scenes conversation going on concerning me? It's getting very weird. Ruth is having behind the scenes conversations. Well, at that time in 2020, she had behind the scenes conversations with friend A and Naomi. Now I'm hearing that she had behind the scenes conversation with Esther. I'm like, this is weird. What is going on? It's kind of low key giving fake friend energy. But here's the thing about it, y'all. The way Esther talked about it, she talked about it in a way that it was like, oh no, Adrian, we care about you. Like, we're worried about you. So I kind of believed it. But there was a part of me that's like, nah, this is not right. There's too many behind the scenes conversations going on about me. And I honestly do believe it's unnecessary because why aren't these people just coming to my face and being authentic about how they truly feel about me staying with them and how they feel? But like I said, Ruth presented the conversation like, oh no, we care about you. So that's why we were having these discussions about you. So I'm like, you know what? It doesn't even matter. It was 2020. I moved out, got my own place. Ruth eventually got her own place. I helped her in that situation. Friend A and Naomi, I don't even know, I don't even know what they're saying. I don't even care what they have to say about me because I'm no longer staying with Ruth. So I'm like, hey, it's in the past. I just wish that I was given some type of grace, and there wasn't any behind the scenes conversations concerning me. So I was like, you know what, it's in the past. So Esther says to me, like, I honestly believe you and Ruth should have a conversation. And I was like, I don't think so. I'm like, I don't think it's necessary because, to be honest, I truly believe that friend A and Naomi were really in Ruth's ear concerning me. And I'm not staying with her anymore. So it doesn't even matter. She was like, no, Adria, I feel like you and Ruth should really have the discussion because all of us are friends. Like, we need to have the discussion. We don't want things like this to linger around. And I was like, Esther, to be honest, I don't think it's necessary because I've already moved past it. The only reason why we're talking about it is because it came up, right? I'm like, I'm really not, hung on that. And she was like, no, like honestly, Adria, I feel like we should have a conversation. Yeah, you guys should have a conversation. Cause honestly, Ruth is such a pure hearted person. Like she is the most, like to be honest, she is the most pure hearted person I've ever encountered. Like she has a pure heart. I don't even think I know anyone who has a purer heart than hers. Like she is so pure hearted. And I just feel like as friends, we don't want this thing to linger around. And I was like, yo, I agree. I agree that Ruth is pure hearted. That was why I'm putting everything on friend A and Naomi. But I was like, yo, Esther, I really don't think we should have the conversation. Like you told, Ruth that the devil shouldn't use her. And I honestly believe that the enemy was using Naomi and friend A to get to Ruth. So since we know that's the situation, there's no point of us having a discussion. She was like, no, Adria, I really do believe you and Ruth should have a discussion. Like, let's all come together and have the discussion. I said, okay, since you insist, because she really was harping on us having this conversation, I said, okay, I guess we can all come together and we can just have the conversation. She said, okay, yeah, that's great, Adriel. So she just said, yeah, Adriel, like honestly, we care about you. We don't like seeing you like this. It bothers us. And yeah. So we had the conversation, y'all, back in June 2021. So the month after. And the conversation actually didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. It went a different direction. And when that time comes, I am going to talk about that. So yeah, that was something that happened in the month of May. Yeah, I was really shocked that Ruth had went to Esther concerning me because I'm like, yo, it's really not a big deal. Like, what? It's really not a big deal. I don't know why. I don't know, but people handle things differently, and yeah. So next episode, I'm going to talk about the branding dream I had in the month of May. Yes, I had a second branding dream. I'm going to talk about that. And yeah, so if you're liking or like this story, please like, comment, subscribe, share, and please also click the notification bell as well. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye.